Hi there, and welcome to the Copycat Stitch podcast. I'm Bailey, I'm the Copycat Stitch, and once again, I am asking for your forgiveness because it has been a minute. I've gone way too long between podcasts. I did film a couple other videos that I'm working on and planning to release soon. And of course, I recently released my whole series about redoing my craft room. If you haven't seen those, please check them out. It was so much work and so much fun, and I'm very proud of it. So this is the first podcast back in my craft room in my podcasting space with my new background and everything. So I'm very pleased to be back up here, even though it is like really, really hot up here compared to downstairs, which was my temporary filming location. And it's a very hot day today. Right now, we're at 86 degrees and rising. And oops, please don't do that. Not on my new shirt. No, honey. I just put on this finished object for the first time, and my cat's gonna come in here and like destroy it. Okay. Nope. If you're new to the channel, this is Annie, and she needs attention, like all the time. She's very persistent. This is my first finished object that I want to show off. I'm very pleased with it. I don't know how much you can see. I'll take a little B-roll afterwards so you can see better. But this is my Palm Your Knits tee by, I think it's Tea. Definitely Palm Your Knits by Knitting Tipsy. I've been working on it a lot. I'm super proud of it. This is the first time I've even tried it on, and I love it. This was made out of some yarn that was special to me that I broke my yarn band to buy because I had wanted it so badly. These are two colorways from Mezzo Makes. This main color that I use, the variegated, is called 90s Taco Throwback, and the border color was called Having a Blast, I think. Both references to Taco Bell, which is near and dear to my heart. I love Taco Bell to this day. And I just thought this was such a fun project. So I don't think I've even mentioned this project on the podcast before because this was one of several that I cast on for my vacation. And I did film an entire separate video about my vacation knits and acquisitions and stuff, but I haven't finished it yet. So you haven't seen that yet. So this is going to be some spoilers. Two of the projects, the two main projects that I worked on my road trip are finished, and they're finished objects to show you in this video right now. I have several finished objects. So of course, there's this one. The other top that I wanted to mention that I worked on my road trip. And of course, I'm kind of glossing over these because I already recorded that footage, so I know how much detail I went into and talked about these two tops so much in that video. So keep an eye out for that if you're keen on more details. But I also keep pretty well updated Ravelry pages for all of my projects. So if you want more detail, you can always go down to the description box and find the link to my Ravelry where you can find the details about what needles I used, the yarn quantities, all the details about any given project for like the last couple of years. Honestly, I only started like 2 years ago, so anything prior to that is a mystery. But this is the Margot top by Gregoria Fibers, I think. Probably. I'm getting all muddled. I'm going to blame it on the heat. This is definitely the Margot top. I was very excited to make this. I bought this yarn months ago specifically to make this top. It is quite heavy, but in a nice drapey way. The yarn is a cotton, and I don't remember which one. It's called Ultimate Cotton. And I love this like steely, deep blue colorway. This was so fun to make. A pretty simple repeat. Like I said, I did work on this primarily on a road trip. So while this one was definitely way simpler because it's just huge swaths of stockinette, this one was a very easy repeat to remember and was a nice gauge to fall back on because this one and a lot of my other projects right now, as you'll see, are fingering weight yarn, and I kind of bit off more than I could chew starting too many fingering weight projects at the same time. So this one ended up getting done quicker and getting more knitting time in because it's a larger gauge at this DK weight yarn, and it was just like a little bit of a break for my hands, but you know how it can be when you're working on fingering weight something. Just knitting something larger can feel like such a break, and is a break for your hands, but also for that like productivity complex, right? Just to feel like to see it grow faster and more. All right. So because I was having difficulties with my little productivity complex, which in my case is a bit toxic, I won't lie, I was like in the middle of so many projects at once. I was overwhelmed with what I had, but I also kind of didn't want to work on anything I had. So many fingering weight things going, and several things that I just didn't want to work on anymore. So I did impulsively start kind of 2 projects at once, even though they're kind of one project, over one weekend. And then when I couldn't finish them in that weekend, I kind of let them like simmer for like a week and a half or so before I finally finished them up. So it was one of those cases where I thought it was going to be a fun, quick project that I can do in one weekend. And when I didn't finish it in one weekend, I was kind of bitter about it and then didn't want to finish it for a bit. So anyway, that was these 2 that I made at the same time-ish. So this pillow, I used a pattern, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's like Bohemian something. It's a free pattern. So of course, find the details on my Ravelry page. The project is there. This is very small. I didn't gauge swatch. It was a spur of the moment, last minute cast on, and it said you need an 18-inch pillow form for this pattern. This is clearly not 18 inches. It's closer to 11 or 12 inches. So none of the pillow, I didn't buy a pillow form anyway. I never do if I'm making pillows. I just kind of hold on to any throw pillows that we have and don't use anymore because we can use them in a capacity like this. I don't throw away or dispose of pillows for this reason. Kind of went through all the ones I had and nothing really worked. In my stash, I do have a giant roll of quilt batting, like cheap polyfill quilt batting that I found at a thrift store a while back. And I just kind of cut off a big chunk of that and folded it up. So it's not very stuffed. I probably could have stuffed it more, but I was pretty bitter about it by the time I got around to stuffing it, and I didn't feel like doing it anymore. I cast on both of these with the idea of adding a few throw pillows to our bed. We don't have anything decorative on our bed at this point. It's just the pillows that we use at night, and I thought it would be nice to add a little more, but I kind of don't love how these look, so I might make another one. They might end up somewhere else. I don't know. For now, they've been sitting on our bed during the day, but they look kind of silly because they both came out smaller than I expected. Well, this one didn't, but this one came out much smaller than I expected. So the scale is weird on our king size bed. It looks kind of funny. Maybe if I add another large one, it'll work more. But right now, it's kind of in limbo. And oh, I should say this one is made out of just scrap acrylic yarn I had. I think it was Lion Brand Pound of Love. I don't remember what the colorway was called, but it's from a blanket I made as a gift a few years ago. And this one, I remember the name was Coney Island. I think it's Lion Brand Thick and Quick Stripes, possibly. I don't know. This, I had a skein and a half of this colorway. It's a bulky yarn. I knew I had this pillow inside, which was an old throw pillow that we didn't get rid of, that I could cover up. So I just kind of cast on enough stitches across the bottom that I thought it would be big enough. And then I knit double the length. I did a purl bump in the middle so it would show like a faux seam at the top. And then I might have done a purl bump at the bottom too, and then worked a couple extra rows and Kitchener together so that it would be the same. But this didn't use a pattern. This I just made up because I thought, I don't know what else I would possibly use this yarn for. And the colors of this yarn actually match the color scheme in our bedroom. So it just seemed fortuitous. Whew. All right. Sorry. I know I'm talking fast, but I feel like I've got a lot to talk about. This happens so often, doesn't it? I do this like every time. I'm like, sorry, I'm flying through it, but I have so much to talk about because I never sit down to do this. But it's true. All right. The next one I have is a gift. A relative of mine is getting married this weekend. One of my cousins. Someone I don't see very often, but I thought I would make a wedding gift for them, especially because of the materials that I had. So I'm going to get B-roll of this too. I'll kind of hold it up a little bit, but this blanket, I started off with this pattern from Lion Brand, a free pattern for a striped throw blanket. And there's nothing wrong with the pattern, but after I chained the amount of stitches that you start with for it, I thought, oh, this is not going to be as big as I want it to be. It's quite a small blanket. So I chained a bunch more stitches And then I started working it up, and after I got through this first repeat, which isn't a full repeat of this pattern is like, there's a section of 8 rows where it's 2, 2, 2, 2, a section of 8, and then 2, 2, 2, 2 again. And then in the original blanket pattern, that just repeats. It's like a striped section of 8, a solid section of 8, a striped section of 8, a solid section of 8. After I did my first striped section and I saw the quantity of yarn I had left of the contrast color, this blue, I thought I need to reevaluate because I'm not going to have enough to get to the end of the blanket, especially because I made it so wide. So I had made the decision, instead of doing a section, an 8-row section of the main color, the white, and then jumping back into this, I would do a 24-row section. I was trying to make it multiples of 8 so that it visually at least looks proportionate, I guess. But then after I got farther, I got through my first full repeat. I thought, okay, well, I'll probably have enough of the blue to get through the blanket, but I think the blanket's going to be weirdly proportioned because I made it wider, and now when I make it as tall as the pattern is telling me to make it, it's kind of going to be closer to a square than a rectangle, which isn't what I want. So I reevaluated again, and I added more rows to the middle. Hopefully you can see in the footage, instead of just doing the stripe repeat and then a chunk of 24 in the white and then a stripe repeat and so on, I decided to do the end repeat, which is like the half repeat, a block of 24, a full stripe repeat, a block of 24, just a thin 2-row blue divider, another chunk of 24, a full stripe repeat, and then I made it symmetrical from there. So I did another chunk of 24 with a thin stripe, a chunk of 24, a full stripe repeat. Hopefully when you're seeing it in front of you, this makes sense and you can see what I'm talking about. So basically, I kind of started with this pattern from Lion Brand, but I diverged from it a lot. I didn't use the stitch count. I didn't use the row count. I didn't use the stripe pattern as described. I was going to use the border as described in the pattern, but by the time I got to the end, I didn't have enough yarn left, so I didn't. So it ended up being very different than what the pattern I set out to make is, which isn't a problem. I think it looks classy. I really like it. I chose the yarn I chose because I had a lot of the white. It was Big Twist from Joann, just their store brand acrylic. I had, I think, 4 or 5 skeins of that in stash. So that was like a natural choice because it would fill in a whole blanket. I chose the blue, which I think I had 5 or 6 skeins of, because I found that recently when I was sorting through my grandmother's yarn stash. That was one of the videos, I think the 3rd video from my Redoing the Craft Room series, where I go through all of the craft supplies I inherited from both grandmothers. And if you follow along, you'll probably also know that both of those grandmothers passed away in the last 6 months. We lost one in December and we lost one last month. So the cousin that is getting married this weekend is on my dad's side of the family, which is the grandmother we lost last month. So I thought it would be a nice nod to her to be able to use these materials that belong to her, a little reminder of her. But I also thought that it's a nice color and it looks kind of classy, and it's blue, but it's neutral. I feel like blue is a very common universal color, and you know, like if it doesn't fit their decor, if they don't like it, they can put it in a box or something. I don't know. I always start out gifts with the best of intentions, and then I absolutely doubt myself every step of the way, and I feel like, oh, they're gonna hate it, they're gonna think homemade stuff is trashy. But maybe they will, maybe they won't. She's not a rude person by any means. She's a very kind, soft-spoken, thoughtful person, so I'm sure she'll tell me she likes it either way. But I made that blanket. So it was a bit of a slog. It's made in crochet linen stitch, which I will say is my favorite and to me the fastest crochet stitch. So it did go quite quickly. I just would get very bored of these straight back and forth rows of acrylic worsted weight yarn, you know? So I got to a point where I forced myself to work on it every day. And I just said, I have to just do a dozen rows every day to finish up with a good window of time to be able to do a border on it and then block it in time. And I should say for the border, I actually ended up using a different white yarn because I ran out of the Big Twist white right at the end. and I found another ball of yarn that had belonged to my grandmother. One of them, I'm not actually sure which one, but I think the same one, that was similar enough in color. If you look at them in like right under a window in direct light, you can kind of see that they're different, and it certainly feels a little different. It's a little rougher, but it's truly just for like the last couple of thin white stripes on the last repeat and the border. So it's not really up against the other white enough that I think you would notice it, and I don't think it's obvious at all. And it was way simpler for me to stash bust a little more than to go to Joann, which is quite out of my way, to buy one skein of their store brand yarn. So anyhow, when I got to the border, all I had was that one ball of yarn that was different but similar enough, and I didn't think it was going to make it. The border that it called for was to single crochet around the entire blanket 3 times, and then there was this sort of scalloped double crochet edge thing, and then you would go around that with the contrast color, in my case the blue again, and it kind of was like a reverse scallop that kind of evened it out into a rectangle, so it looked like a V shape inside of the scallops. I thought that was pretty and I wanted to do it, but with the quantity I had, not going to happen. So what I ended up doing was using the white. I did single crochet around 3 times. I just made the 3rd time around. I had a tiny little bit of white yarn left at the end. And then I wanted the edge to have the blue, but to look really clean. And to me, I don't love the look of single crochet. And I especially don't love the look of single crochet of one color in single crochet of another color. So what I did after I did the 3 rounds of single crochet white was do 2 rounds of just slip stitch in the blue. And I think it looks really nice. So, let me try to get the edge so I can show you. I don't know how clear it is here. It just kind of creates, it's almost like having like an I-cord. Similar. I think it looks similar to an I-cord bind off, but it's more straightforward. I did have a hard time on that 2nd round. I tried to keep my stitches loose on the 1st one, but some of them were really quite tight. It was pretty hard to do the 2nd round, and I had to keep a smaller size crochet hook handy because some of the stitches were so tight I was afraid I was going to break my crochet hook. So I had to keep a metal one handy that was a little smaller to get in those really tough ones. But when I blocked it, I don't think that it like tightened it or distorted the shape of it or anything. And I think it does make a nice clean tidy edge of the contrast color. So I'm pleased with that. And I did end up with about half of a ball of that blue left over after. So it feels like a suitable use of a large quantity of yarn that I inherited from my grandmother to be able to like pass it back to the family. Okay, we're ready for whips. I brought my whole whip basket up, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. This is my Moan cardigan. I haven't worked on this at all since the last podcast. This is my Ripple Tea, is that what it's called, by Jessie Maid. I have worked on it a lot, but the progress is slow going because it's bottom up and it's this 3x3 rib. And this yarn is lovely and it's really fun to work with. And I've actually been working on this a lot this week, but I feel like this has been on the needles for months and it's like 6 inches long. It's just this fingering weight. It's a light fingering actually. It just goes so slow and I've been plugging away at it, but still in progress. Not much to report there. All right, I'm just going to keep, let's talk about all the things I'm not going to talk about. This is the Zesty Tank. I don't believe I've worked on this at all since the last podcast, which is a shame because it's very close to being done, truly. I know in the last one I talked about this project. This is my Shelia Bikini, which I made one last year and I'm making one this year. I know the bottoms were nearly done last time. I don't remember if last time I had done around the edges. I've got the elastic around the leg holes and around the waist in this. And I've mostly finished the top. This is something that I could have done in a matter of a couple days if I was motivated, but I had other crochet projects, and by the time I spent the whole day working on that crochet blanket, not the whole day, but you know what I mean. I spent my crochet time for the day working on that acrylic blanket. I just didn't want to crochet anymore most of the time. So obviously you can see this is the cups. This is the little band that goes underneath. Right now I've started one of the straps, and then you just kind of have to go back and forth to make really long straps because it's not like a closed loop. You tie them behind your neck or behind your back or whatever you want. So it's a very customizable bikini. When I made it last year, I recommended it, and I would still recommend it. I think it's really fun. It's a well-written pattern. It's definitely intermediate because it holds your hand, but it's super customizable. So you kind of have to know where you want to end up to be able to accomplish it. It's made to measure, and there's definitely a degree of uncertainty there with any made to measure garment, no matter how well it's written. So it's really fun. I'm looking forward to having that one, but we're not going on vacation until late September, so I'm not in a huge hurry to wrap it up. Once it's done, I know I have some swimsuit lining material from making stuff like this in the past that I will stitch into the inside as a opaque layer. All right. My Moonset Tea. Again, I've been working on it, but it's probably not going to look very different. And this is where we get into the tedium of how many fingering weight projects I have going. So I already showed you the Ripple Tee. Ripple Crop? Is it called Ripple Crop Top, I think? That's fingering weight. That's in a really nice special soft wool. So that yarn is nice to work with, but it's still fingering weight and the gauge can get to me. This is also fingering weight. This is 100% cotton. So I have so many cotton projects going right now. Why do I do this to myself? The bikini is a cotton yarn. The Margot top that I finished is a cotton yarn. This one's a cotton yarn at a fingering weight gauge. It's nice. I think I'll like having it when I'm done. I am a little worried about how this yarn will hold up because it's already kind of showing some wear and tear from the friction of being in the bag, and I haven't even finished the garment yet, but it's a nice neutral. I like the Moonset Tea that I made last year. It's something I wear a lot. So it's something I'm looking forward to, but it's a tedious process and I'm not motivated enough to like fly through it and actually wrap it up. Especially when I have so many other fingering weight projects going, and some of those are either more desirable or have a deadline. There's one in particular that's like direct competition for that one that we will talk about. And honestly, I only finished this one a couple days ago, so I guess I don't have as many fingering weight projects at the same time as I thought I did because I just wrapped this one up, but I still got, I think, 4. All right. This one is another one that I started and introduced in my as yet unreleased road trip knitting video. This is the I Found Him cardigan. It's from the official Outlander knitting book. See if I can show the picture of the... So it's a very simple, like mid-century inspired cardigan. In the show, it's actually a crochet cardigan. So I think it's funny that they decided to put it in the knitting book, but I guess it happens the other way all the time. So it's just got this very simple diamond motif knit in panels. This is the back panel and seamed together. I started it because I thought it would be a straightforward, lightweight thing to work on the road. And then I never touched it the entire time we were on vacation. So it kind of didn't matter, but I've been enjoying it recently as it is now one of the only things I have that is not a fingering weight project. So I've kind of been using it as a respite from the rest of them. This is Lion Brand's Comfy Cotton Blend. I have lots of quantities of this in different colors. This is something I've used a lot in the past. Based on this tag, I can tell this is part of the infamous Christmas Tree Shop's yarn haul of 2020, 2021. I don't remember when I did it, but I have a ton. I've used a bunch of it already. I used this yarn before that Christmas Tree Shop's haul, and I have several garments that I finished out of it. It is a half acrylic, half cotton blend, and I think it's really nice because you get some of the breathability of the cotton and the texture of it, and it's something that softens with wear and with washing and blocking. But it's not quite as heavy as cotton because the acrylic really lightens it up. Half of the weight is gone. So I had a sweater's quantity in this navy color that I wasn't sure what to do with it. I'm kind of been saving, and I thought this is a good use for it. It's a nice vintage cardigan will do. And I probably need to work on more like not tank top t-shirt things because I've got so many summer knits going that I truly probably can't, I mean, like even finish them all this summer, let alone like start a new one, and there's more that I want to do, you know? So that's the knitter's dilemma, isn't it? There's always more I want to do. There's just not enough time. I also have my Sweet Shop blanket here, but I have not made any progress on that. I think maybe I've added 1 or 2 squares and they're not even new colors, so there's no sense in unfolding that. All right, I have 2 more whips to talk about, and they are both s.knits. So, oh my God, I haven't worked on this in a couple days, and I just opened the bag and fell in love again. Okay, this is a s.knit for Knit California. I'm so excited. Oh, I love the color so much. Most of the time when I'm knitting, I'm in my downstairs in my living room. The lighting is not good in there. It's quite dark. And seeing this up here in the natural light is so exciting. It's so pretty. So, like I said, this is a test knit for Knit California. This is the California sweater, her first garment design. And I wasn't planning on applying for this, but then when I saw the tester call, it gets my wheels turning. This happens every time. And then I got all excited and I just go to my yarn stash just to see if there's anything that I could use. And then when I found this yarn combo, I got all excited about it. So I applied and I got it. And honestly, I cast on the body and did the entire body of this in like 3 days, a couple days. It's such a large gauge. It is so fun to watch it work up so quick, but also like with my never-ending fingering weight projects, these it's 6.5 millimeter needles. I actually had to size up for the sleeves. But these big chunky needles just made it so fun and such a vacation from my other projects, which I don't really want to be in a position where I need a vacation from my other projects, but this was a welcome departure, I guess. So the yarn that I'm using for this is Lion Brand FOMO, which I bought huge quantities of this from Lion Brand's website a few years ago when they discontinued this. It's, as the name implies, FOMO hair. It's not all acrylic, it's all synthetic. It's partially acrylic, partially nylon, polyamide, I think. No, viscose acrylic nylon blend. It's extremely soft. I love this yarn. I've used this to make a couple garments before. I made my Primavera sweater out of this that I love and I wear all the time in the winter. I made a sweater that I gifted to my sister for Christmas out of this, and I still have sweater quantities of a couple more colors. It was so cheap at the time. It was one of those things where they were already on clearance and they had an extra discount on their clearance yarns, and I got these for like less than $2 the skein. So I got a lot, and I'm really glad I did because it was discontinued and I have enjoyed working with it so much that I'm glad I stocked up and I've had the ability to work on it. So for my California sweater, I am holding it with this mohair, which is, what is it called? Molly Town or something? Molly Girl. I don't remember where I got this. I remember buying it on the road trip we took a couple years ago. So I could have bought it anywhere. We went to yarn stores in Washington, D.C. and in Tennessee and Kentucky and maybe, yeah, I could have bought it at any of those. I don't remember. So anyway, the last thing I got there was hand-dyed mohair. I love it. It's so pretty. Again, I don't have a big selection of it here. And this, I just thought was so nice. But I had 2 skeins of this, which is not quite enough for a sweater my size. So I've been holding on to it for a long time. But because the California sweater is knit at such a large gauge, I was really close to the yardage that Leslie listed in the pattern requirements. So I thought I would take the chance. I think it looks so good with the mauve of the FOMO. Like the exact same tonality is in there. As you can see, they blend together so well and they make this beautiful like blueberry whipped cream color. I love this so much. I'm not really a purple person either. So this is very enjoyable for me. But because I'm cutting it so close with the yardage, I think I have about 100 yards less than Leslie says I would need. I have a backup, and let me get it out. I had one single skein of this mohair, which is a really similar color. And it's from a different dyer. It's hand dyed. I got it on sale at a yarn show, and it was the only one. But it is really close. So I figured what I would do is try to make it through with these. This is, I think, my second cake of this. But I think I might make it, actually, because I'm already through the entire body. I did the collar, and I'm like almost halfway through one of the sleeves, and there's a lot of this left. But my thought was that if I get close and I think I'm not going to have enough, I can kind of alternate skeins with this one to make it last longer, because it's really, really similar. I actually did my gauge swatch with the backup one just to reserve the primary one that I wanted to use, and it's pretty similar. I mean, there's a lot less tonality. Obviously, it doesn't have those like deeper blues, but it's similar enough that you could definitely just like alternate rows and you wouldn't know any differently, because this color is in the variegated one. So a lot of talking to say I willingly play very intense games of Yarn Chicken, but I have a contingency plan. So I've been flying through this one. I love this so much. I did run into difficulty when I got to the sleeve because my tension went way down when I went to small circumference knitting, and this is actually my 5th attempt at the sleeve. So I flew through the body in a couple days, and then it took me like a week to get this sleeve right. A lot of trial and error, but I finally found sizing up my needles and doing magic loop gives me the same gauge as the body. So super having fun with that one, and I'm not sure when that pattern comes out, but the test ends in September, so fall, late fall? I don't know. Go check out Knit California. She has all the details. She's in charge. I just work here. All right, and then I have another test knit. I am not sure if I'm allowed to talk about this. So I'm about to film this segment, and then I will double check with the pattern designer before I include it in the podcast, because I don't want to say anything I'm not supposed to say. But I'm test knitting a tank top for s.knits. I bought 5 balls of this Lawn du Nord Cotton Soft Basic. It is entirely cotton. It says 60% recycled cotton, 40% regular cotton, and it's a fingering weight cotton, you guessed it. So this, I actually started these 2 test knits on the same day, and they end virtually the same day, a day apart. And the day that they end is the day that I go on vacation. So I'm definitely going to finish them both in plenty of time. I just got to the point where I joined under the arms last night. So this one, it's fun. I think it's going to be lovely to have when I'm done. But this one I do find difficult to work on. Maintaining my tension with fingering weight cotton is tough. And it's not something that comes easily. There is a nice crochet detail that goes around the edge at the end, which is what makes this tank top super special and pretty. I still have to choose my contrast color for that, but you don't even need a full skein of yarn for that, so I have lots of choices. And that's why it doesn't super bother me that the edges are like a little bit messy, because I know they're going to get covered up with that detailing at the end. So it's all curling in on itself. I know it's hard to see, but I love this like icy cool gray color. And the fabric itself is really soft and nice after it's knitted up, but it just, you know, gets a little tedious to work for extended periods of time with cotton yarn, especially at such a small gauge. So that is the one I referred to earlier as the direct competitor for my Moonset Tea, because this one has a deadline and I feel pressured. Not that the designer is pressuring me, but you know, I feel my internal pressure of knowing that there's a deadline. And if I have the capacity and the willpower to work on a fingering weight cotton project, it's going to be that one right now, because I want to be absolutely certain that I'm not leaving myself too little time to wrap it up and finish it before the test knit is over. So I'm pushing to get that one done sooner rather than later. And for the time being, that means not working on the Moonset Tea, because they're too similar and the cotton is wearing me down a little. I did do a sewing project. I'm not going to show it right now. I filmed a separate video about the process of sewing it, and it went pretty smoothly. I did make a couple mistakes, but I'm proud of the way that I solved my mistakes. And I made myself a dress for the wedding that I'm going to this weekend. That happened, and it went well. And as always, when I do a nice little sewing project and it goes well, I love the feeling of having my stash here and like utilizing it successfully, right? So I'm going to a wedding. I need to bring a dress. I don't want to go buy a new dress, but I have everything, right? So I dug through and I had a pattern that I thought would work, and I had fabric that would work, and I had lining fabric that would work, and I had a zipper that would work, and they're all things that I thrifted, every last one. And that is just such a good feeling to use thrifted fabric and a thrifted zipper with a thrifted pattern and have a free dress, basically. It's just such a good feeling. And it's also a good feeling because it worked out and I finished it on time. But that was fun. And if you watched my video about redoing my craft room, you'll know that this table right here is actually a fold up cutting table. So that was the first time I got to like roll that out and set it up. And it's such a game changer. I am so happy to report that it made the process so much easier for a couple reasons. It's a standing height table. My dining table is vintage and it's very, very low, and it hurts my back terribly to actually like lay fabric out and cut it on that table. So having a standing height table made a huge difference. And it also made a huge difference to have it here in the room with my sewing machine and all my supplies, so there's not the back and forth as I forget things or need to go up and downstairs to make changes. It was so much better. It was also nice because I did it over the course of 2 days to be able to just like leave my project at the state that it was in progress and just like walk away from it and come back the next day. Whereas if I was like doing that at my dining room table, I probably wouldn't have left everything out because it's in the way. But it was fun. That is to say, I had a good time. I successfully made a sewing project. And because I did that, I'm like already planning another one. I already had this idea and I dug through, and I've got a basket on my desk over there with all the pattern pieces cut out, and I'm ready to do another one. So this happens every time I do well with sewing, and I'll like keep doing them at a reasonable pace until I hit one that's really difficult, and then I'll probably not sew again for like 8 months. But that's me. Here I am. All right, so I don't have any acquisitions. Technically, my yarn ban is over because it ended on my vacation, but we were on a tight budget on my vacation, so I did buy a couple yarns at the yarn stores that we stopped at. That also something I talk about in my road trip video that's upcoming. And after that, I haven't purchased any yarn at all. So I guess I could, but I don't really have the desire to. Like I said, I'm kind of booked for the rest of the summer. I'm gonna struggle to finish all the summer projects that I already have before the end of the summer, and I know I'm gonna want to dive into fall knitting as soon as it hits September. So I've basically got a month for all these whips that I just showed today, and I don't think I can finish all these in a month. So I have plenty of fall appropriate yarn as well, so I think I'm just gonna keep, it's not an official yarn ban anymore, I'm not gonna call it that, but I'm still not making purchases because I don't need to, and I probably won't until there's something specific that I'm looking to get, or until I go to Rhinebeck. So there we go. There we have it. All right. That didn't seem too long. I probably talked too fast. Well, I think that's everything I have for you today. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the podcast. And if you did, comment below to tell me that you did, because I always wonder how far people actually get into this. Like, should I even say anything more? If I stop talking right now, will it even make a difference? These are the questions that keep me up at night. No, it doesn't. I'm just kidding. I'm suffering from like heat brain. I swear. I'm losing brain cells right now. Thank you. I appreciate you who are still watching right now, because you're committed. This is ridiculous. Thanks. If you're not, you're subscribed. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to do the spiel, because you watching right now at the end of this nonsense when I've been blabbering on for like the last 90 seconds, I know you're subscribed, and thank you. I appreciate you. I'm sure I'll see you in the next one. Bye.